good morning or good evening, depending on what part of the world you're joining us from. I'm thrilled to be here with you today and extend a warm welcome to our colleagues and friends from India, as well as those across the United States. Thank you, Mira Iyer, for your beautiful, uplifting voice and song to start us off. And thank you, President Stenger, for opening our conference and for your leadership on behalf of the underserved. I also want to thank the Planning Committee led by Debbie Colette O'Brien with Liz Anderson and Margie Gates for your tireless effort to make this Let Us Dream conference the best ever. Binghamton University's College of Community and Public Affairs, where I'm privileged to serve as dean, provides an outstanding education committed to work in the nonprofit and public sector for undergraduate and graduate students. Our students are passionate about engaging in the most meaningful work there is to uplift the lives of individuals, families, organizations, and communities. Students in CCPA are committed to service informed by evidence, a combination that fulfills CCPA's mission of positively impacting the world through interdisciplinary, local, and global impact. I'm enormously proud of how our students, faculty, and staff live up to CCPA's mission of addressing complex problems to build more just communities for all. As President Stenger says, CCPA's partnership with Christ University and the Let Us Dream Conference is a perfect fit for our mission and for the conference theme of ensuring equity and access. You'll get a chance to hear today from university faculty and staff, as well as community practitioners who live and breathe inclusion and work to equalize opportunities for all. Some of them do this through education, others through healthcare, and some through government, nonprofit organizations, or grassroots efforts. Whatever the form and whatever corner of the globe, all are implementing and generating new knowledge and innovation to apply to society's most pressing challenges. And I thank them all for sharing their work and wisdom with us today. Now it's my honor to introduce my good friend and colleague, Father Lijo Thomas. Father Lijo currently serves at Christ University in Bangalore, India, as the head of the Office of International Affairs, the Student Welfare Office, the Center for Academic and Professional Support, and the director of the Department of Performing Arts, Music, and Theater, in addition to contributing his services as assistant professor at the School of Social Sciences. I know there's a lot of people on this call today with a lot of titles, but I challenge any of us to have more than Father does. Father Lijo is the founder and director of Dreams, a community university collaborative service learning project established in the US and India. He initiated this work while completing his doctorate at the University of Louisiana in Monroe. He went on to create and direct the Let Us Dream conference, which we are all part of today, with the goal of connecting diverse community service initiatives, scholars, and post-secondary students in order to empower local communities for sustainable impact and improvement. Father Lijo is indeed a tour de force. Thank you all for being with us today, for joining in our collective efforts to build a more just world for all. Enjoy the conference.
Thank you, Dean Bronstein. It's truly my great pleasure and privilege to be a part of this unique gathering, a gathering which brings together a group of people with great, bigger hearts for other people, a gathering of people who got some great stories of unfailing hope and determination in making some positive changes in our communities. The Let Us Dream conference is also a platform where both researchers and practitioners from different walks of life come together, share their knowledge and experiences for improved efficiency and impact in our service commitments. Let Us Dream Community Conference was established in 2017 at Louisiana Tech University with the intention of bridging community organizations and service initiatives with the higher education institutions for greater impact and support system and networking. Now this annual community conference is being established in 4 different locations in the United States, Germany, and India, and also getting started in other new locations as well. I'm extremely happy to say that the Let Us Dream conference at Binghamton, started in 2018, has already bridged a lot of community organizations, community volunteers from the field of education, health, and social services in Binghamton and other nearby cities. So thank you, President Harvey Stenger, Dean Laura Bronstein, Conference Chair, Dr. Liz Anderson, Coordinator Ms. Debbie O'Brien, for your outstanding commitment and leadership to this vision. Let Us Dream is an invitation to share, learn, and celebrate the diversity of our dreams among us and around us. Thank you to the entire team of organizers and speakers, CCPA, and all other partner organizations for voluntarily sharing your time and skills toward this vision. I hope this conference inspires all of us to be a part of solution in the process of making our local communities a better place. Let us journey together with this movement of hope, inspiration, and dreams. Thank you. I would also like to introduce Dr. Elizabeth Anderson, the chair of the conference. Dr. Elizabeth Anderson is an associate professor in the Department of Teaching, Learning, and Educational Leadership at Binghamton University. She has been in the field of education for over 30 years in a child development specialist, a teacher, administrator, teacher educator, and researcher. Currently, she serves as the director of the New York State Education Department's Central and Western Region Community Schools Technical Assistance Center. Dr. Anderson's research examines the intersections of academics, mental health, and their potential impact on students' learning, development, and behavior. To that end, her many publications and grants have focused on the role of interprofessional education and collaboration using a school-community partnership model. Through her work, Dr. Anderson seeks to support the whole child by improving the alignment and integration of programs and service across sectors. So with this short introduction, I would like to invite Dr. Liz Anderson to give us the overview of the conference today. Dr. Liz Anderson.
Thank you, Ms. Mira Iyer, President Stenger, Dean Bronstein, and Father Lijo for your words of welcome and inspiration. It is my distinct pleasure to add to this warm welcome as conference chair. I've had the pleasure of being involved with Let Us Dream conference since 2019, when I served on the education panel, and then again as the education panel co-chair for the triennial International Let Us Dream conference in 2020. In between those two conferences, I had the incredible opportunity to travel with colleagues from Binghamton University to India. As a scholar, my visit to Christ University broadened my awareness of how much more we have to learn from and share with each other as we seek to better translate research into practice. As a teacher and teacher educator, I was thrilled to be able to visit several schools in Bangalore. Engaging with teachers and children and their families, I was reminded that the language of smiles, the critical role of nurturing and caring adults, and the boundless energy and enthusiasm children have for learning is universal. Joining us for today's Let Us Dream event are individuals in a variety of roles: university students, researchers, community practitioners, volunteers, with an array of backgrounds from the Binghamton community, New York State, and across the globe, and yet each with a commitment to transforming our families, neighborhoods, schools, and communities, and ourselves. From our opening keynote with education faculty researcher, Dr. Amber Simpson, to our education, social, and health panel discussions, our closing keynote with community healthcare practitioner, Mr. Sean Britton, and our celebration of unsung heroes, we will explore the needs of our time, share solution-focused ways of responding to these needs, and seek to inspire the next generation to envision something new for the empowerment of all and the betterment of every community. Our conference theme centers around equity and access, as they are the foundation upon which opportunity gaps are closed and that whole child, whole family, and whole community can thrive for education, mental health and wellness, housing, employment, and so much more. Today, we gather together to embrace the small things, celebrate initiatives from the heart, and share fluid and sustainable ideas that bridge research to practice, share best practices, and offer hope for a better tomorrow. It is now my pleasure to introduce our opening keynote speaker, Dr. Amber Simpson. Amber and I are colleagues in the Department of Teaching, Learning, and Educational Leadership at Binghamton University, and I have come to know Amber as an amazing researcher, dedicated educator, and active community member. Amber's many publications and grants center around increasing the number of individuals who pursue STEM careers. But it is really the way that Amber approaches her work that makes her so unique. Her research partners are teachers, children, families, and her university students. Her research lab is the home, the school, the community setting, and the university classroom, as she seeks to further examine identity within STEM disciplines, better understand the role of making and tinkering in formal and non-formal learning environments, and investigate family engagement in and interactions around STEM-related activities. And now our opening keynote address from Dr. Amber Simpson.
Thank you for that introduction, Liz, and welcome. Get set up here. So when I was asked to give the keynote for this conference, I did not hesitate to say yes. Not because I had any idea of how I would be an inspiration, share words of wisdom that would encourage and motivate you to leave this conference and change the world. I said yes because I am a yes person. I would characterize myself as someone who works excessively and compulsively, yet highly enjoy what I do. But what this means is that I rarely take time to sit and reflect on myself as an educator, a researcher, a colleague, a friend, an advisor and mentor, or even a daughter or a sister. But as I started to think about this keynote, I was forced to stop and reflect. I began asking myself such questions as, why was I asked to provide this keynote? How am I as an individual shaping this community in positive and negative ways? What am I learning from this community? How am I inspiring the next generation, if at all? How am I ensuring equity and access within the community? So you kind of get the point, so I'll stop there with my questions. But this keynote is entitled Small Things, as Father Lijo shared with us a few weeks ago, how change begins from the small things that we do in our communities. So I will take you on my personal reflection journey, while I also encourage you to stop and reflect as this keynote is interactive. As Dr. Elizabeth Anderson shared with me during my preparation of this keynote, we have to reflect on ourselves, our past, our present, and our future dreams before we can transform our communities in hopes of ensuring equity and access for all. Okay, so my work is situated within the education sector, particularly in providing opportunities for individuals and groups of individuals such as children, families, classrooms, young adults, and educators to engage in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM. I do this in both non-formal and in cultural ways. So to continue to add to my list of questions, I pondered, why am I actually interested in providing and transforming STEM opportunities within the community? What was it about my upbringing that fueled this passion? So my earliest memories as a child is not how we as a family went to science museums or a zoo, but my uncle getting dragged through 2 inches of snow by my Doberman Pinscher bow. I do not remember reading books or magazines or comics about science or engineering concepts, but I do remember our Sunday lunches were always fresh sliced bologna sandwiches and barbecue corn chips. I do not remember completing puzzles, but I do remember transforming myself into a waitress delivering food on skates, or a teacher creating word searches on a word processor, or even a grocery store owner with a playhouse full of empty food containers. So I actually called my mom and I asked, what are things that we did growing up that was STEM related? And her response was, STEM wasn't a thing when you were growing up. So I pushed back on it a little bit and I asked her, was it possible it was a thing, but we were just not aware of it? But if I expand my perspective of STEM, I did engage in STEM related activities in the form of play. I captured and explored bugs like crawdads, fireflies, and June bugs. I created structures with Legos, which my mom has refused to get rid of, the Legos, that is. I built catapults to shoot things at my younger sister, and I constructed tents and forts both inside and outside of my home. And as you see, apparently things have not changed because I am still building tents and exploring animals. But this essence of my work within the community, transforming our understanding of STEM as a human endeavor that can happen anywhere and everywhere. And as I transition from my past to my present, I want to take you on my journey through situating my present work within the community, within the global crisis, the COVID pandemic. So I'm going to begin with sharing headlines and images of the pandemic that I have seen in different media outlets. And maybe you're seeing similar headlines in your context. And at the end of this video, I'm going to ask you two questions. What are you feeling and what resonated with you? Okay, so we're going to try a Padlet and see how this works. So again, I'm interested in what are you feeling and what resonated with you in this video. So you can do one of two things. So you can scan the QR code to post, or we will put the link in the chat for you to access it that way. You don't have to sign into an account. And just so that you can kind of see how Padlet works. So I have an example already posted. You'll double click on the little bottom plus sign in the right-hand corner, and it'll bring up the post that you see on the left. And you can add a subject line, and then you can write something in the place where it says write something fantastic. I added a picture because I have lots of times to sort of peruse. And then you hit the publish link and it should just pop up. So you can post, it's anonymous, so no one will know who posts, and you can read other posts as they begin to populate. So I'm going to give you, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes to maybe think about those 2 questions in terms of what are you feeling and what resonated with you. And I'm going to hope that multiple people on Padlet do not make it crash. Thank you. There's a lot of posts happening. I see a lot of frustration, discouraged, traumatized, sadness. So thank you for your post. So you can keep posting. I like that question, can we connect? I like that question. So if we think about, in general, like all the systems or sectors that make up a community. So we have the education sector, your schools, your daycares, your museums, your college and your universities. We have the health sector. So we have hospitals, clinics, pharmacies, mental health providers. We have the government sector. So law enforcement, court systems, military, the business sector, your industries, your small businesses, your mom and pop stores. You also have the human service sector. So your social work, marriage and family therapy, hospice, and you also have the religious sector. And these are just a few of the sectors that exist. So within these larger systems, we have individuals and we have the family. And each of these systems can work in isolation of one another, or these sectors can collaborate to transform and address issues of access and equity highlighted in the Padlet that you all have so kindly posted, and that have impacted the lives of individuals and families in our communities. So while the headlines and the images that I shared painted a despairing image of the pandemic, I've also witnessed many headlines and images that gave me hope. So the daily thanks and gratitude for first responders and medical professionals, the cooking and delivering meals to the homes of some of the most vulnerable people, providing free internet and mobile hotspots to support online learning, graduation signs posted in the yards of graduating seniors and drive-by birthdays for loved ones, teachers writing chalk messages on the driveways of students, and community organizations mobilizing to address community health and differential healthcare access due to social inequities. So these acts of kindness and gratitude had to start with at least one individual who had an idea and they made it come to life in their community and for each other. So we turned toward each other as opposed to turning on each other, which transformed our communities into places with a heart. So for me, the headline on learning loss really infuriates me for several reasons. One being the focus on school-based learning or academic achievement. So while I value schools and educators, this is a limited perspective of learning that often marginalizes youth and families and their cultural ways of knowing and being that do not fit within some standard of learning. So I want to share alternative ways to think about learning that are grounded in humanistic and authentic ways of engaging in STEM that supports them in reaching their potential as individuals and as citizens. I'm going to present 4 learnings or developments, and all of my examples come from my work in the community, particularly during the pandemic. But these are also developments that I have witnessed throughout my partnerships with community organizations over the past 4 years. So the first one is creativity. So I want you to imagine receiving a kit at your doorstep that challenges you to take an old toy and to transform it into something new. So your toy is this stuffed ape. So I'm going to give you like 20 seconds to think, how would I transform a stuffed ape into a new toy or give it a new life? So as a family, the Taylors created a jewelry scrunchy wall hanger that would light up. Now, this is a little frightening. I understand the tearing an ape apart may not be, it's definitely transforming. But to me, it's very creative in how they utilize the arms of the ape to be the scrunchie, and that the head and the neck of the ape to serve as the place to hold necklaces. You can also see how they also lit up the jewelry holder scrunchie on the bottom. So here's another one. Consider being challenged to create a trendy tennis shoe using such material as fabric, foam, ribbon, cotton balls, sandpaper. So here are 2 examples that families created. So the Allen family created an Olaf shoe for a 3-year-old, while the Nom family created a sandal to wear around their house. So you can see in the Olaf shoe the use of Velcros, which was actually intentional, knowing that children at 3 years old is not able to actually tie their shoes. So in addition, the pandemic provided opportunities to encourage children and families to think about how to use recyclable materials and everyday objects in creative ways, as these material and objects were transformed into something new. So just what's around your house that you can use. So some of these objects and materials were outside of what we provided. So I would consider this exhibiting resourcefulness. So consider this quote by Jack. We have like 8 Powerade bottles sitting around right now in case something goes wrong with our pump design. Or Martha, who noted having foamy dice and elastic that they've had for years. And they actually used the elastic to open up their grabber. So this idea that we didn't have to go out and buy anything. We were able to use things in our home to develop prototypes. So let me show you some pictures. So what do you notice in these pictures in terms of resourcefulness and creative use of materials and objects? So I'd actually like you to put in the chat. What do you notice? What do you see in terms of resourcefulness and usefulness of objects in people's homes? So I see things like wide variety of material, egg cartons. Yeah, things we typically throw away. Trash becoming treasure. I like that, Faith. So actually, and through these activities, I've noticed a lot of our families stopped throwing things away because they really thought about how they could reuse material in their home, which I find value in. So thank you for sharing. So I don't know about you, but if I think about creativity, I actually feel a lot more comfortable growing old knowing that the next generation is exhibiting different forms of creativity and innovation. So creativity is a really important mindset needed to solve the social, global, health, and economic problems that we face. And the pandemic has actually emphasized the need for creativity and innovation to address the various problems and obstacles that we've encountered. So the next learning is inquisitiveness and curious. So if you can imagine raising a 2-year-old to ask why about 114 times an hour, they are so curious about their surrounding environment and why they are being asked to brush their teeth or why they're being asked to clean up their toys. So in interviews with caregivers, they described how their children began to develop an inquisitive mindset. Why are things working? How are things working? Why are things created? What purpose do they serve? So can you imagine being asked, how would you stop water from flowing over a dam? This just can't automatically stop. Or driving over a bridge and your child asking you, how high are we above the water? Look, you can walk up those cables if you want to. How does that even work? How do they make those cables? Or imagine yourself reading a book when you look over and see that your vacuum cleaner has been taken apart. Okay, so maybe not your vacuum cleaner, but a pen. So as this quote by Amanda actually highlights, being a part of our STEM program has really shifted how Anya, her daughter, views the world. So she commented, I feel like everything is an engineering idea now. I feel like it opened up her ways of thinking, like she'll be clicking a pen and then 5 seconds later, I look over and the pen will be apart and she'll be like, Mom, look at this cool mechanism. What do you think of this? So there's actually research that refers to this as like an itch that needs to be scratched or a detective who wants to solve mysteries. So this is exciting because research actually shows that curiosity was explicitly expressed by 21 elementary school students less than 1 time every 2 hours. So curiosity is an essential component to the learning process, and not to mention scientific discovery and innovation. So another learning that I've been seeing developed is problem solving through failure. So the majority of us have likely experienced failures in the STEM disciplines throughout our lives that have stopped us from moving forward and diminished our confidence and self-concept. So my memories of such failures occurred in academic contexts and settings, but I observed children and their families failing and being persistent that are common to engineers and scientists. So this is an example of creating a water bot that would actually paint. And you can see the different prototypes from the Fordhams. So the different uses of the Q-tips and the cotton balls. And you can also see the different art designs. Here's another example. So in creating a grabber, something that would pick up various items, the Allens went through several iterations. So the image on the left actually shows the working model. So you pull a string at the end, and that will actually open or close, in this case, the scissor lift or the scissors. But the first iteration was actually the top image with the cups. So they first developed a scoop, but what they noticed was that the scoops wouldn't close very well, and that it wasn't sturdy enough to pick up items. So then their second iteration was a redesign where they used the actual scissors. They created scissors using popsicle sticks. So in these instances, the home environment afforded these children time to walk away, troubleshoot, and return to their prototype. So here's a quote from actually a child from one of our interviews. So she stated, most of the time we would stop and think about a different prototype. We got angry. We were like, I'm done with this. This is so stupid. And then the next day we would come back to it, work on it, and then we're like, we got this. So from my perspective, time is something that is not often a luxury in school or even museums or summer camps, but it's an advantage of engaging in STEM in the home environment. So the last learning I want to talk about is collaboration. So I'm going to begin with the transcript from a family interview. So the child said, I thought it was interesting because me and my mom don't really work together a lot. And the caregiver noted, well, we're actually together a lot. The child noted, but we don't work together a lot. So this idea that we're together, we're present, but we don't actually work together was something highlighted here. So I asked, what does that mean? Does that mean you work together on this project, the cat house on the left? And the child said, yes, we work together. So much to my surprise, this was actually really common across families. There was a sense that this program afforded them an opportunity to work together in their home environment. And recent research has actually documented how actually just talking to your kids about STEM increases the potential of them receiving a degree in STEM. So just talking to them. And so this was even more powerful than informal learning experiences such as attending camps or reading science books. So what this research really highlights is that the home environment and family connections can serve as another and perhaps an alternative context to support the development and growth of youth. So I'm going to provide you another example. So we're going to observe two siblings and their caregiver tested a prototype in which their goal was to deliver a package at least 6 feet in distance. So I want you to kind of think about, what do you notice in terms of the collaboration?
Now we're going to. Okay, so hold on. There's our 6 feet. That's the 6 feet mark. Okay.
Oof.
Oh,
it hit something.
Hit something. Hold on. We gotta reset. We're trying it again this time.
Oh,
there it goes. It
6
went
feet.
past. There it is. All the way over there. So this is. There's 6 feet.
Right there.
Right
See
there,
it?
6
Right
feet.
there.
And then
There's our
egg. So I don't know. What is that? Maybe another 6 inches or so.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I do it one more time? See
Yeah.
if it works again?
Yeah.
See that you both have to hold it down because it's
Because
the force is a lot on it.
and it does it
There
again.
it goes again. About the same distance. Yep. There it is. All right. It's a successful one. So why don't we put something in it to see if you could have a filled egg go over to your neighbor. So we're going to do that. So they filled it with the macaroni that came with the kit because we don't have any jelly beans. We ate them all.
Yeah.
So we're going to pretend these are jelly beans in an egg and we're trying to send them to our neighbor to have an Easter treat. Okay. Oh, it went.
Okay, so in the chat, what did you notice in terms of collaboration? I agree, Liz. I loved how they celebrated their interactions, encouragement. Everyone had a voice. Bonding experience. Yeah, so you all really noticed the interactions that were happening between and among the three in the group. I also noticed the use of we. So if you notice a lot, they said we did this or we launched it. We ate the jelly beans. That to me is an indication of collaboration. The other thing that I noticed was the use of both hands, right? And the mom even noted, and the caregiver noted, you both have to hold it down. So a lot of times what I've noticed in a lot of these interactions, that it needs more than 2 sets of hands, right? And so having multiple hands on a project has been really helpful in terms of collaboration. So one other thing that kind of
Now we're going to.
Okay, so.
it was kind of like a aha moment for me. So I don't know about you all, if you had siblings. Like I did not get along with my siblings growing up, and you would never hear me comment on how well my siblings did on something. But here's an example of 2 brothers that worked on our program. And one, Jeff noted, I don't think we fought very much, but I do feel like we took on roles. And he went on to say, like, Stan was good at coming up with ideas and how to change around the ideas we had. And I feel like I might have occasionally had more of the hands-on. So when this idea of like noting each other's strengths was like something that has come out of several interviews that we've had with children. So this is just one example. So from my perspective, STEM is really transformative on many levels. So let me provide you with a quote from Yuri. She's a mother that engaged in the program with her son, Zach, and her daughter, Zariah. So she noted, having to do it as a family, it brought me closer to Zach and to his mind and to his world. I was able to see how Zariah could have a future in the field as well. So I think it is important for families to participate because it really knits the family closer together. There's nothing like creating something with your hands. So this quote really exemplifies the potential to do more than develop children's skills and mindsets. So STEM is transformative, again, because it can happen anywhere and everywhere within the community. It can happen in your homes, hospital waiting rooms, parks, playgrounds, libraries, schools. It can even happen at the sidewalk. So it can also happen with anyone. So I think there's a false belief that you have to be a particular type of person to engage in STEM or support and work alongside others. But I hope as you're seeing through these examples that anyone can engage in STEM. It's this idea that you have to be a particular type of person is just simply not true. But if we continue to limit our understanding of STEM within a learning loss or academic loss sort of deficit narrative, as opposed to like this idea of an omnipresent opportunity to learn, then issues of equity and access will continue to be a part of the conversation. So I'm going to transition to what am I actually learning for my community? So how would you actually address this? Like, what are you learning from your community? What are the small things that's influencing and shaping you as an individual? So one of the big things that I'm learning from my community is that parents are actually really thoughtful and amazing educators, particularly in terms of mathematics and science, which is sort of where my focus has been. And so I'm going to give 2 examples from one activity called the rain gauge. So these examples are illustrative of the very humanistic nature of engaging in STEM within an authentic context. So this quote by Wolfendale and Morgan, from my perspective, highlights the value of caregivers and families to actually enhance, extend, and support the growth and development of their children beyond what one organization or institution can do alone. So it's sort of like a learning ecosystem. And also, caregivers are able to utilize their cultural and familial ways of knowing to support their child as STEM learners in the home environment. It is this very uniqueness of their relationship that cannot be replicated in schools or even an after-school program. So I want to play a video so you can kind of see what the rain gauge actually does. But in general, families were to create a simple circuit so that LED lights would light up when a certain amount of rainfall had accumulated.
Oh, we got light. We have a green light. All right, so
that's just an overall perspective of sort of the outcome of the rain gauge. So I'm going to start with a math example of what I noticed. So Penelope is the child. She decided that since she had a cup, that she was going to use volume. Volume was the appropriate measure to measure rainfall. So through exploring different measuring spoons, she decided that she would use 30 milliliters as opposed to, say, like an inch or a centimeter. So I'm going to play a short video clip of her conversation with her mother, Amanda.
Now I'm curious how this might correlate with our measurements with the ruler. Just more of a curiosity, really.
Yeah, because if it actually shows a pattern, but you can see the first one was bigger than the second one, and the second one was way bigger than the third.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's because it's spacing out, so it's carrying more volume. There we go.
Cool. Should we keep going, or you think that's good?
Let's keep going.
Okay.
Oh, are we gonna do like LED lights so it like lights up when it gets there? Oh my gosh, that's cool. See, like right now it's barely going up for 15, and 30 is only going to be a little.
Why do you think that is?
Because, like I said, it's spacing out a little. See that these two are the same. These two are the same. No, those two.
So the cup gets wider as it
Yeah, and
goes up?
so it's gonna get smaller and smaller and smaller.
All right, so let me see if I can sort of unpack what was happening here. So Amanda says, I'm curious how this might correlate with our measurements with the ruler, which Penelope noticed this idea of that the cup is actually it widens as you go up, right? Think about a solo cup. It's usually smaller on the bottom and it's a little bit larger on the top. So this idea that it carries more volume. And then she kind of also noticed that something was happening in terms of what was happening when she marked her line. So every time 30 milliliters went into the cup, she kind of marked down her cup. And she noticed that something was happening between the spacing. And you can even see how her hand gestures are even noting where she's pointing and her idea of the spacing. And so her mom kind of interprets that to say, oh, so the cup gets wider as it goes up. And Penelope is like, yes. And the spacing is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And again, you can see in her hand gestures how even the spacing between her fingers gets smaller as she goes up the side of the cup. So in this example, Penelope is conceptualizing how the change in one variable due to the shape of the cup changed another variable, which was the vertical distance between the lines. They were getting smaller and smaller. So she's actually developing an understanding of proportional relationships, which is not a concept taught until 7th or 8th grade. And at this time, Penelope was a 4th grade student. So I kind of want to emphasize here how the authenticity of the engineering task, the cup itself, which honestly, I had no idea how a cup would spark such conversation in math, and the caregiver sort of affording this opportunity to really engage in rich mathematics, really highlighted this idea of humanistic ways of engaging in STEM through this engineering task itself. So let me give you one more example. So here's a science example, same idea, rain gauge. And this one I'm going to play an audio clip, and I have the transcript here.
So Jude and Rina, we finished now. We did the whole thing. We connect everything as described, right? And we tried
To let it light up.
we tried water that we drank from the cooler, right? It didn't work. Do you know why?
Why?
Because there is a little of mineral inside that water,
What is that?
like salts inside. So it will not connect the power in
Of
a
light.
better way, okay?
Of light.
So we use
Sink water?
sink water. It has more salt, so it will connect the power coming from the battery in a better way, okay? So we'll try to
Again.
pour water.
Light up.
So when I actually watched this video for the first time, I felt like I was sitting in a middle school classroom, kind of watching my teacher conduct an experiment. Because basically what was happening in this conversation was that pure water is a very poor conductor. So like I have a Brita filter. If I tried to pour water in that rain gauge, it would not work. But tap water, like rainwater, contains charged ions that allow electricity to flow through. So what's happening in these conversations, again, just talking to kids about things, sharing the knowledge is having an impact on their understanding. This had a huge impact on my understanding. Again, I felt like I was a middle school student learning new concepts again. But we're actually using these conversations to continue to build and support sort of the facilitation guides that we provide to families. So the next thing that I'm learning is I have learned the importance of building and maintaining partnerships with individuals, institutions, and organizations in the community. So anytime I have approached an institution or organization with some crazy idea, I often hear, yes, let's make it work. Because there's this idea, this vested interest in supporting the growth and development of young children. So I don't always actually enter these partnerships with a clear idea of how it's all going to work myself, but I have also learned to just say, let's make it work. So the partnerships have been really vital. This idea of like me learning to say, let's make it work is actually been really difficult for me because I'm actually someone who likes to have quite a bit of control, and I don't actually handle chaos and disorder very well. So let me give you an example of this idea of let's make it work. In February 2018, I taught an academic service learning course in which groups of undergraduate students worked with a community partner, and their goal was to develop a program to actually engage young children or families or adolescents in a STEM activity. So I approached a local library about being a partner, and they worked closely with one group of undergraduate students. They've helped them find a day and time of the week. They helped them find a target group. They helped them advertise the opportunity. They supported my students in terms of they were present at the after school program. They stayed late. The program was like 6 to 8 at night. While I, on the outside of the program, really supported the students in reflecting on their practice and really helping them think about what do we do week to week. So it was a very like opportunity where whatever happened one week, that's going to influence what happened the next week. And since fall 2018, we have continued to work together in conjunction with one another in providing STEM opportunities for families in the community. So individually, I cannot whistle a symphony. I mean, actually, I can't whistle at all. But with partners in the community, we are able to play a musical composition, in this case, with the theme of STEM education. So I also want to take a little bit of time to actually acknowledge and thank everyone in this community who I've worked closely with over the past 4.5 years that I've lived here. I had to go far back into my calendar to remember. There's a few names in particular that I've worked really closely with. So just again, want to thank and acknowledge everyone. And I apologize if I've left anyone off the list. So the last one I want to highlight in terms of what am I learning is the idea of removing walls. So removing walls may seem like a small thing, but I argue that it's actually not a small thing. It's not easy to expose our true selves to others. And I can contest to that in this keynote. I'm probably sharing a lot more about myself than my colleagues or my community know about me. But I'm learning to be vulnerable. I'm learning to embrace imperfections. And I'm learning to challenge my own thinking as an educator. So let me provide an example of this as well. So I again worked along undergraduate students in providing STEM opportunities in a local elementary school. We did this during indoor recess time. So I don't know how many of you have ever worn a camera, but that's exactly what I did. So talk about vulnerability and exposing yourself to watching yourself on camera. So I actually recorded all my interactions. So the first thing is I actually experienced this tug of war with myself between being this math educator in a classroom setting and then transitioning to being this informal educator in a non-formal recess time. So I actually learned to challenge what I once viewed as a typical way of operating. So I continually asked myself, how do I unlearn what I know? And how do I undo sort of these embodiments that's been typical to my everyday engagements in the classroom setting? Second, the experience allowed me to embrace imperfections as an educator. So a lot of times what I noticed when I watched the videos is I was doing things that I told when I watched videos or my research, I kept saying, oh, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? When again, I caught myself doing the exact same thing. So for instance, I noticed a lot of times I would, instead of using my words, I would grab the object and actually help support the kids using my hands. So kind of taking over. So that was another thing, sort of this idea of like my imperfections. And the last thing was I actually exposed my struggles and my failures and my mistakes to the undergraduate students within our conversations. So I made myself vulnerable as I was supposed to be the quote unquote expert, but through revealing my vulnerabilities as an educator, we built a relationship of trust. So lastly, I'm actually learning to love and be myself in this community. So I shared a lot of information and examples. So I want to conclude my present reflective journey with 3 highlights for you to walk away with. So one is networking and collaborating across and within sectors lead to partnerships that impact and transform communities. 2, STEM activities and programs can provide learning opportunities that are often not privileged in a school setting, thus have the potential to shift deficit views of learning laws to a perspective that appreciates humanistic and authentic ways of engaging in STEM that supports children and adults in research and reaching their potential as individuals and as citizens. So remember, STEM can happen anywhere and everywhere and with anyone. And my third message is to be vulnerable. So as I think about my future journey, I'm overwhelmed and excited by the transformative opportunities that lie ahead within my community, particularly within STEM education, and how I will continue to be vulnerable and grow as an individual. I am one person that has to rely on partnerships and often says, yes, let's make it work to bring about a transformation. So I will stop short of an official invitation and let those in the community lead between the lines, because I want to provide you with an opportunity to think about your future dreams and how it might move beyond just one individual to a network of partners to actually make change in our communities. So again, we're going to do another Padlet for you to post. It'll be anonymous. So we will put the link in the chat. So we'll take about 2 or 3 minutes for you to think about how might we as individuals bring about change in our communities, and how might we build and or transform our communities to ensure equity and access for all. And I apologize if you hear construction in the background. All right, things are starting to populate now. So I like the idea of a community makerspace, whoever come up with that. We do have one in this area at least. Be a lighthouse in the fog. That's very inspiring. So continue to sort of add your thoughts there. Notice similarities and differences in what people are posting. So I want to end and leave you with these 2 quotes. So culture does not change because we desire to change it. Culture changes when the organization is transformed. The culture reflects the realities of people working together every day. And then Father Lijo also said this a few weeks ago. So take notes from our music, but create your own composition. All right, thank you.
Amber, thank you so much. I did let people know in the chat that we are both in a building that is
Okay.
construction.
It was supposed to be done by 9 o'clock this morning.
I know. I did ask folks, because we do have a couple of minutes, if they had any questions, to put them in the chat. But I wondered, while folks are doing that, since we do have a few minutes, you spoke so much and shared so many examples about the ways in which you have really fully engaged children and families, community members, university students in this work. And so I wondered if you could share, what in terms of your takeaway, what are some of the strategies, whether, and again, we can look across all of those different participants that you have found most successful? Many people here today work with university students, children, families, and community members in a variety of capacities. What are some of the strategies that you have found most effective?
Yeah, I feel like ask, which has been really hard for me. So when I first come to this community being new, I didn't know where to turn. So I asked, and again, rely on the partnerships. But I think it's learning along with people has been a strategy that's worked well for me. My BU students, the families, like I said, I've learned so much from just working with families that I've never thought that I could learn. So I think it's letting people know that you're wanting to work with them, learn from them, engage with them, support them, being human, I guess, is just one approach. But I've also, again, I've stumbled greatly on many things, and I realized that. And so learning through those moments of failure, I think, has been important.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Amber. And I think that, as we heard earlier, this notion of, failure and being vulnerable, and then kind of collecting yourself and, remembering what those goals are and why you do it, and connecting with the heart of it, and then getting back out there. So I'm just going to ask a couple more questions since we have time. Where are you going next with your work?
That's a good question. That's why I kind of left it open. I have no idea. I feel like the family piece has become a huge focus of mine, and really thinking about the home as an environment, the playgrounds, the parks as an environment. So trying to continue in that line of research and support is where I would like to continue. I feel like I've only started dabbling in that a little. And again, that's where I left kind of like between the lines. I'm again a yes person. So when someone's like, do you want to do this? I'm like, yes, let's make it work. And so I think continuing to spread, even thinking about how do you utilize hospital waiting rooms as a place to support learning and growth and STEM. So trying to think about sort of different outlets or environments to sort of do this type of work is a real huge interest of mine.
There was one question in the chat about access to the guides you use to share with others. Is that something that people can have access to, Amber?
Yeah, so we have a website, and at some point I'll put it in the chat, where we have all of our kits are online, and we have the child version instructions and the facilitator guide instructions, so it's free to use. We use all low-cost material. I think the boxes probably cost more than materials inside it. I've also become resourcefulness. I don't throw anything away. I will keep yogurt containers and empty ketchup bottles. So my basement looks like a maker space of just junk. So those types of materials we actually use in the kits.
Right. And I also wondered if you could talk a little bit more. Obviously, you're working so closely with children, and the way you started by sharing, and really it resonated with many people, some of what we're hearing and have experienced, during COVID. And yet I am sort of taking away from your keynote just incredible hope for the future. What do you see sort of evolving and emerging within children through your work that you feel is most hopeful and promising?
Yeah, I think some of those learnings I shared, I think my work, I'm really trying to push the needle on what is learning. And so it's not necessarily content, but it's those skills that people need in general to be, good, quote unquote, good citizens, or just how do you find who you are as an individual, and sort of developing that, the idea of creativity and collaboration that will stick with them far beyond, maybe particular concepts. I think that I'm very hopeful for that. I'm very grateful to families for recording. And I will say, during the pandemic, we were delivering kits to the home. So we do whatever is possible to sort of lower the boundaries to access and equity as much as possible. It's not, we're not there yet. But I also got stuck in people's driveways. It was snowing. So I've learned that I don't like to cook doing a lot of this work. We used to cook for families and I'm not a cook. So I'm continuing to learn more about myself in terms of sort of those aspects of my life.
And there's actually a question about families in the chat. You know, providing that support for families who may not feel confident to engage their children in these types of activities. And, you know, how do you focus on that? And what are some ways that you approach that, Amber?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't feel like I've tackled that really well yet. One is because parents have to have that initiative to say yes first, right? And so we actually don't use the word STEM a lot when we advertise. We use words like family building, because we've learned that idea of STEM initially is just very scary, that people just don't even want to go there because of their own experiences. And so I think that's one thing that we've learned is sort of the way you approach your advertisement or what's happening or that kind of thing. And then again, I think just making it accessible in areas in the community, like your parks, think places where kids and families go all the time. It could be the bus station, or it could be sitting and waiting on the bus, and you're sitting in the little, I don't know what those things are called, the housing where you wait for the bus, like put things in there. So I think lowering the access and boundaries that way is one, but again, I think that idea of yes, we want a kit is sometimes that first hurdle. And once we get past that, it seems to be families enjoy it really well.
Well, and I wonder too, when you gave that list of all of your community partners, we often talk about the importance of a soft handoff. And I imagine that those community partners are those trusted individuals in the lives of many of the families and children that you're working with. And so it really, I think, speaks to both the notion of partnerships, but also, you know, whether it's the school, community, university, family, and how do we come together and identify who has that trusted relationship, who can then bring in other partners to help, as you said, make all of these activities accessible and available. And so, you know, I think that what I'm envisioning now, and I will be looking for in our community as we wrap up, Amber, is these opportunities and spaces and activities everywhere we go, as you said, and that is really a community approach to supporting families and children and university students and community members in all these opportunities for learning. So thank you so much. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Allie Wittenberg. She's going to talk a little bit about the panels, and then I believe we're going to take a short break. Thank you, Amber, for all your remarks today.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you so much to Amber. And feel free if anybody wants to share in the chat a little thank you or a message. I know that Amber was getting to see some of those messages, so thank you so much.